And a good spiritual morning. Christ is risen. Christos Anesti. I'm Father Cosmas, joining you from my prayer corner here at home for a morning cup of coffee and a chat. And I thought today, since again we are sort of trying to survive still this stay-at-home order and all of these restrictions placed on our freedom, and this is having a drastic effect on how we're living sort of day to day, I thought I would talk about something that has been affected, I think, by this. And I think that we're coping in a lot of different ways, naturally. You know, some people are watching a lot more television. Some people are reading a lot more. Maybe some people, you know, the crazy ones, they're exercising a lot more. Some people are cooking and baking a lot more and eating a lot more. And yes, some of us are drinking a lot more. On one of my earlier videos, I made a joke about seeing people walking on the street drinking beer. And I think, though, reality is our alcohol consumption has skyrocketed. I think that we see that, you know, all of a sudden Binny's and other providers of alcohol liquor stores have been deemed essential services through this entire process. And alcohol sales, especially online sales, but alcohol consumption has really shot through the roof and gone up tremendously over the past 6 weeks or so, because people they're stuck at home and they're finding a way to enjoy the time, you know, maybe enjoy it a little bit too much, and cope with what is happening. So I thought I would talk a little bit more about you know, how we are coping with alcohol consumption specifically, and maybe some positive things to think about. As we said before, and I'll reiterate that, there's nothing wrong with having a drink. Again, there's nothing evil or, you know, morally wrong about consuming alcohol. It is in the scripture. It's in the Bible. We mentioned the Psalm from Vespers last time, where it talks about in the Psalm, Psalm 103, I think it is, you know, about wine to gladden the heart of man. And obviously, it's the element that we use to receive Holy Communion. So there's no way that we would consider it to be in and of itself, alcohol that is, somehow intrinsically evil. It's the abuse, like so many things. It's the misuse and abuse of it that becomes difficult for us to rationalize. So there's nothing wrong with having a drink, and we've said that. People are drinking whatever they enjoy drinking. Some people enjoy having a beer or a glass of wine or a good glass of whiskey. Like me, a good glass of scotch or whiskey, to enjoy a little sip of something. There's nothing wrong with that. I know abbots of monasteries that enjoy, of course, a good glass of wine or a little shot of whiskey here and there. In fact, when you go to a monastery to celebrate a feast day and you sit at trapeza, you sit at the meal after the feast day liturgy, one of the traditional things is for the abbot to sort of, or the abbess, to walk around and offer all of the guests a little glass of wine. And that's something that, as a clergy, sitting at the clergy table, has happened to me many times. An abbot has come around and offered a drink of wine to celebrate the feast. So again, there's nothing wrong with consuming the alcohol and enjoying you know, the alcohol the way that we enjoy it. The difficulty is in the abuse, and that's what I caution people about. Have a beer. Don't have a six-pack. Have a glass of wine. Don't have a bottle of wine. You know, we need to start thinking about how much we are consuming, and not that we're going to become alcoholics, but the real danger is not in the alcoholism. It's in sort of this effect that we want to numb ourselves to the reality of what we're experiencing. And that's really how the alcohol can be abused. Not in that we go into full-blown alcoholism, but that we find ourselves consistently consuming because we don't want to feel our emotions. And it's an easy way to sort of numb yourself to the reality of what's happening. And people are doing that in different ways, and some people are doing it by consuming alcohol. And that's something that paints a very dark picture, this picture of someone that's depressed and isolated. And a lot of people right now are feeling isolation. They're feeling stuck at home. They're not able to physically see people as much as they would like, obviously. And so they're being isolated. Some people that are alone in their homes, especially, they might not be getting out of their homes for weeks now at a time. They're not actually having a conversation, face-to-face conversation, in close proximity with people for weeks at a time. That isolating effect is devastating for us. And so we're going to cope in different ways. And this image of someone that's feeling isolated and sort of closed off from their normal social interactions in their house by themselves, just sort of ordering and having alcohol delivered and just consuming it so that they don't have to feel what they're feeling, that's obviously tragic and disturbing. And I would encourage us to think about using the alcohol consumption in a positive way. As I said, there's nothing wrong with having a drink. One of the best ways to have a drink is to share a drink. So use the alcohol not as a way to numb what you're feeling and to continue to increase the isolation. Use it to break down the isolation. Share a drink, even if it is virtually. There's nothing wrong with planning to share a drink. I mean, if you can do it as a family, assuming you're all able to consume, that's obviously wonderful. If you can't do it in person with the people that you're quarantined with, to have your Quaran-tinis together, do it virtually and make a date, sort of plan a date around that. Use the alcohol as an excuse to sort of have a drink with someone, with a friend, and get together. And they're having their glass of wine and you're having your glass of scotch and you're FaceTiming or you're Skyping or you're just on the phone chatting. That's a wonderful way to help break down the isolation rather than perpetuate the isolation. Utilize the alcohol as we would a meal for gathering people together and strengthening and supporting each other. It's a sort of a nice excuse to be able to get together as you would after work, get together for a drink or meet someone for a drink. You're not going to go to a bar or to a restaurant and get drunk. You're going to meet, have a drink, and it's about the social interaction. It's about the visit. It's about sharing time. And I think that's what we need more than anything. So to think about using it in that way, absolutely positive and healthy. Once again, may our risen Lord bless us and keep us this day and every day. Christ is risen.